And cannonball, shallow, small, evil, moonlit laughter, cause the sun shadows all people.
Sen Morimoto began his life journey in Kyoto, Japan, and now he and his style of lush hip-hop call Chicago home. His newest work is called Cannonball, and it was written, arranged, and produced all by himself, and is available now. Sen Morimoto, welcome to Vocalo.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, this is not your first visit to Vocalo. I think the last time you were here with Kaina, playing in her band. Before we get into the album, can you tell me a little bit about that collaboration and why this network of musicians that you have chosen to work with is so important to you and your work?
Totally. I guess, it wasn't something that I intentionally sought out, which I think is something that makes it very special to me, is that it feels very natural in the way that things just come into your life and everyone's life, you know, and the things that last for a reason. And I think it's all just been through playing shows and meeting people that, you know, you can feel when you're on the same wavelength as someone in terms of things that you value in music and just in life in general. And so a lot of the people I work with, you know, the reason isn't, although I love their music, that's not really the reason that we work together. It's more that we can connect as human beings, you know.
Now, let's talk about the journey from Kyoto to Massachusetts to Chicago. Jazz music. You're a trained jazz saxophonist. I don't know a whole lot of super young people who found themselves in love with jazz as even younger people. What is it about the way that jazz in particular is arranged and composed that you find is helpful as a hip-hop songwriter?
For me, it's mostly, the kind of freedom you have in voicings, in chord structures, just the way that you kind of surround a melody with feeling. In a way that I think something that jazz really informs for me is like tension and release. Yeah. And in a sense that if a pop song may be very much just release the whole time, it's like, this feels good, like every second of this is happy.
Yeah.
And this kind of like jazz tonality has a little more like, oh, this feels like bad for a second, but when it comes back, it feels even better. And that's something I really appreciate about jazz. I'm trying to think what else. I guess.
Did you find yourself, while living in Massachusetts, did you find that it was easy to talk to your peers about such sophisticated music? Did you find kindred spirits to play with?
Yeah, I went to a jazz camp. That was mostly.
Look at you.
No, it was really, I was so embarrassed. I like really enjoyed it, but I was like, I can't tell anybody I'm going to jazz camp. Oh no. Yeah, that was mostly, I had a couple friends growing up who were similarly just like fascinated with jazz, and they were but they were rare, yeah, few and far between for sure. And so jazz camp was really special. They'd had it at the like local college, and there was a lot of like really great jazz musicians would come and teach for the summer, and it was really cool to have a place where everybody there was into the same type of, or just at least interested in some type of jazz.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're hanging out with your friends, you know, it's like, it's Rage Against the Machine and, you know, whatever.
I love that Chicago is still a destination for musicians to come and put roots down because of our long jazz and blues and hip hop traditions. What made you pack all your things and move halfway across the country?
I don't know. It was pretty random. I was 20 years old, and I was in love. I moved here for my girlfriend at the time, and then I don't know, you know, I just float along. But over the past couple of years, it's become a really special place to me, just meeting the community and having people to collaborate with, and yeah, it's definitely become a second home to me in a way that I really treasure and appreciate.
Well, the city appreciates you. I used the word lush a little earlier to describe what I hear on Cannonball, and I want to make sure people know it's Cannonball with an exclamation point. The exclamation point has meaning to me. There are so many just rich, fat layers in this album. You hear a lot of really sparse sounding minimal beats on a lot of radio stations. Trap music, minimalism is very, very hot right now. What made you go in your particular direction, giving us extra sound and not less?
I guess, well, it's just the process that I make things in is that, like, a lot of times I'm writing while I'm recording, and so it's a lot. What's funny to hear you say that is that, like, this record, I like kind of consciously was like, let's take some out.
Oh, there was more?
There was, yeah, because it's just usually when I'm making a song, it's just I'll make like just dozens of layers of things, and then take out the things that kind of aren't adding to it. But it's definitely, I guess it's not minimal. It's not quite minimal. We're getting there.
And there is something to be said for, sparseness in a beat, because it kind of allows you to be able to concentrate on lyrical content a little bit more, but we're not lacking for that on Cannonball. You're very funny. You're a very funny lyricist, but there's also a lot of just real life stuff in there. What do you decide needs a little levity, and what do you let just kind of steep in its emotion?
I don't think about it too much. I guess most of the writing is very kind of stream of consciousness, and then later edited a little bit to at least fit some kind of songwriting form. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of just how I think about things. You know, I'm bummed out about a lot of stuff, but at the same time, you can't take anything too seriously, and everything is funny at a certain point if you think about it long enough.
It's true.
But yeah, so I try to just have a little bit of both in every song.
On the track People Watching, which is one of my favorites, you say, I don't have a band, I don't need a band, which is an interesting statement from someone who knows so many talented musicians. What's attractive to you about your taking the songwriting process and working through it mostly alone?
It's easier. I think it's just easier for me to experiment by myself. Although, like, there's something to be said for when you're collaborating with someone, like, the most amazing thing is that they'll come up with something you never even would have thought of, and that kind of combination is the magical thing there. But for me, it's hard for me to be totally free in front of people that I don't know very well. So for certain people, like, I write songs with Kaina all the time, and it's like we have the kind of relationship where I can just try something and see what happens. But yeah, I guess it's just easier for me to experiment, take my time, try something that sounds funny at first, and then
so
find the space.
I read that you said that you find some aspects of songwriting to be daunting, and I get that because it is. But overall, you said that you find the whole process to be therapeutic. How so?
I guess I don't really dish that much. I don't vent to a lot of people or anything. I guess it's a place for me to feel like I made the space musically, and so I can fill it with whatever is concerning me at the time. I don't really like to take up people's time or mental ability. Trying to solve my problems.
You find yourself not wanting to be a burden to your friends, but that's what friends are for.
It's true. I am trying to get better at that. And then maybe the music will suffer, and then, but I'll be happier.
Hey, that's the balance that I think most creative people have to find for themselves, right? Like what you can throw yourself all into your work and get into your own head and not really take care of yourself in that way. But your music sounds dope.
Yeah, definitely a happy medium would make me happy.
Yeah. I want to make sure that people know that the album is called Cannonball. Cannonball!
Cannonball!
And the album is very exciting. I am excited for you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Sen Morimoto. It's Vocalo Radio.
Thank you, Vocalo.